Manifestation is about taking ownership of a future you desire. There's so many things that science can't prove. Your entire natal chart, which is a snapshot of the solar system at the time of your birth. Your sun sign's your identity. Your moon sign is like your inner world, so your emotional self.
Why are they important?
It's a lot of the time it's how people perceive you and also how your soul's has chosen to be perceived by other people.
Right. You're saying that we can use astrology for self-awareness.
I would never, ever tell someone to judge another person based on their star sign. So just as you can't judge and critique yourself and put yourself in a box and use your zodiac signs as an excuse for who you are, you can't do that with other people either.
I would love to know, how do you respond to people saying that manifestation might lead to focusing too much on wishing without the emphasis of action?
Manifestation is this co-creation piece between taking action and practicing non-attachment. If you are trying to manifest by sitting there and going, I wish this would happen for me, or God, I hope this happens for me, and you're not actually doing anything about it, that's actually not manifestation at all.
We can definitely see a shift in how people act and behave when the moon is full.
I believe.
Jordanna, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah.
And maybe not where I thought the podcast would go, but we were having a discussion before I pressed play or record or whatever it is. It's not me doing that, by the way. Because you have written a new book and we want to talk about that today. But you were just talking about, well, let's maybe rewind for a second. You have been on the podcast. I think this is your third time, maybe.
Is it?
I think so.
What did we talk about the other times?
Well, what was the previous?
Manifestation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then before that, I don't know, that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Whatever you were doing in a previous life.
Oh my God.
That's when we had you.
I couldn't even tell you.
Yes.
I've lived many lives.
You really have. But maybe we should start there actually before we jump into what I was going to say. For people who haven't watched the iterations of all of your lives, maybe give a little bit of a backstory.
Sure. So my background is journalism, and I actually started in food journalism, which morphed very swiftly into wellness when wellness exploded. And I was working in the health and wellness journalism sector online.
That's where we met. So however long that ago was.
So that would have been, oh my God, I want to say 10 years ago.
At least, I think,
Yeah. And what was I doing? I was catering yoga retreats and writing about food and doing all of those things.
Living your best life.
Yeah, living my best life. And then I got a bit full. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I was running moon circles because I'd always really been into astrology. And I pitched a book to a publisher at the time around manifestation. I felt like I was approaching it in a really different way to the way everyone else had. And then that ended up being my first book, Make It Happen. And now we're 4 books down the track. And this latest one is an astrology book.
Amazing. What are the other books?
Higher Love came next, and that was about manifesting love and dating. The third one was called Make You Happen, which was about self-awareness and how self-awareness is the key to manifestation. And now we arrive at astrology, which I've been working in the field of astrology for like the last 6 years, but very much behind the scenes. I never wanted to write a book about it because notoriously astrology books don't sell.
And why? Do we know why? Because they're just seen as too woo?
No, I think what it is that people like the little tidbits, the little snippets we get on social media, and they don't really require more than that. Or perhaps they think that there is not much more to learn beyond that. But real astrology goes so much deeper than that.
Well, I think you say that in your latest book. You talk about how it's not just a little like quote on Instagram. It's actually so much more, and the science behind it is so much more than that.
Yeah, and it's not even so much the science as it is like the wisdom and the teachings and the symbolic meaning and the archetypes. Like there's so much to it. But for me, I actually was using it as a personal development tool. So what I've done with this book, much like all my other books, is it's a personal development book. It's fun.
It's interactive.
It's interactive. It's practical. It's applicable, but it uses the wisdom of astrology. Yeah.
And so for the person that's listening that is the skeptic, what do we say? Like, what's your elevator pitch to that person going, oh, come on?
I think it's funny. It's like astrology is not objective, right? So it's not black and white. It's a very subjective field. And I think where people sort of try and trip me up as the skeptics is looking at it like it's a belief system.
Right.
You either believe in it or you don't believe in it. I don't think you have to believe in order for it to be effective, right? Like I said before, the foundations of it are symbolic language and the archetypes, psychological analysis, mythology. There's lots to it. And if we look at something like art or music or poetry or myth or storytelling, it's about the meaning it creates rather than it being based on empirical evidence, right? And also, I like to say to people when they're talking all that science talk, but science says this and science says that. There's so many things that science can't prove, right? Like love and emotions and chemistry. Even time, like time can be measured mathematically, but the human experience of time can't be measured. Why? Sometimes does time stretch and sometimes it compresses for us. And so I think astrology can go into the same field as all of those things.
What was it that really led you on this path? Because obviously you've come from self-help has always been the focus.
Yeah.
You said you've always used astrology. Or am I right?
Yeah.
But what was it that really has sort of solidified that for you as going, you know what, I need to really share this. Like you've written about all of the ways of manifesting and self-reflection and now we're here.
Yeah, it is that. It's the self-reflection piece and the self-awareness piece. When you look at astrology as more than just your sun sign, you look at your entire natal chart, which is a snapshot of the solar system at the time of your birth. So there's like 10 planets that we look at and some other points and angles in the chart. It really gives you this sort of like framework or blueprint, not necessarily of who you are right now, but who you have the potential to become. So when we're looking at evolving and growing over our lifetime and learning things, expanding into who we are, the natal chart can actually be used as a guide on how to get there. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
It's quite interesting if you really think about that, because how many people are born at the same place at the same time? How many do we know actually? What
I don't know, but I will tell you this.
It's not many, right? Like if I think about, I was actually born in the country. I was born in Mildura at a specific time.
Yeah, on a specific day.
On a specific day in a specific year, obviously. Yeah. Maybe none, maybe one at the same time.
Yeah,
like
that's true.
It's not. So if you think about where everybody is, I guess in more populated areas, maybe you've got a chance that there are more than a handful. But when you really, really think about that, there's probably not at the same place. I think the place is the part that's particularly interesting.
Yeah, I mean the place, so when we pull up a natal chart, the location is really important. The location of, say, Burleigh Heads to Miami Beach is not going to make a difference at all.
Okay.
But if you were in Victoria and someone at exactly the same time was born in Queensland, yeah, it would make a difference to the chart.
Yeah.
Not a huge difference in terms of the planets and the signs they're in, but the structure of the chart, and this is getting a bit advanced, but the houses and where the ascendant sits and all that sort of stuff.
Right.
But I've read charts for twins before. So twins who were born minutes apart, and their charts look exactly the same. A few things are off by a few degrees, but they're completely different people. And that's because, of course, there's so much more that goes into who you are than just your natal chart, but also more than the way you're brought up, because they were brought up the same way. You know, it's the choices you make, it's what strengths you choose to lean into, what weaknesses you make your personality, like all of that sort of stuff makes a difference, of course, and the relationships you have, the way you interact in the world. Yeah.
Fascinating though. And so, I mean, really what you're saying is where you feel that this can really help people is give them it's not hope. It's almost like well, you said a blueprint as to the potential, which might then encourage someone to actually kind of like not discover, but be led on a path that maybe they wouldn't otherwise be motivated to be led on.
Absolutely. I think what I love most about reading charts for people is making them feel seen and making them feel like those little inklings that they have around maybe what their purpose is or what they feel drawn to or what they're naturally talented or skilled at is actually written in, I hate saying this, written in the stars, written in their chart.
Sounds like a song, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I think that's The Greatest Showman or something.
Yeah, but it is. And also back to that skeptic's question, put that skeptic in front of me. I will read their chart for them.
Right.
And then they can tell me that astrology doesn't stand or isn't real.
I think it probably gets, for that person that's listening, that it really doesn't get the full attention. It's probably because it's done in a half-assed way. Yeah. Like
probably.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You hear the story of the person goes, I know that probably because it wasn't taken seriously, but I know that as a kid growing up, whoever did their work experience at the local newspaper, the work experience person got to write the astrology for the day.
Right. But you would even find that in the work that you do, right? If someone's going to half-ass the concepts that you're talking about, they're not going to give it the gravity that it deserves. And so if someone's going to say, yeah, I don't actually believe that's true, or I don't believe that would work, you could go, yeah, all right, that's probably fair.
Yeah. So can you give me an example for the person that's listening? Because I've definitely, I've had people look at my chart and tell me, and I was like, oh my gosh, that all makes so much sense.
Yeah.
But can you give an example for the person going, I don't even know what you're talking about? What's the chart and where do I get it?
Oh, right. Okay.
Obviously you have a book that guides people through that, but what is an example of what that could tell somebody?
Okay. So if anyone can hop online, all you need to know is your date of birth, your time of birth is very important, and the location of birth. And then what you can do is hop on any website really, and you say free natal chart, it'll pull up a free natal chart for you. What you want to have a look at, I would say as a newbie, is your sun sign, your moon sign, and your rising sign.
And why are they important?
So your sun sign, well, the three of them together are what we call your primal triad. I call them the three amigos, and they basically make up the core of who you are. Right? So your sun sign's your identity. It's your life force energy, what gives you vitality.
Okay, yes. Keep going, yep.
Your moon sign is like your inner world, so your emotional self. It speaks to your instinctual urges, so your feelings, your moods, your sensitivities, your intuition. And then the ascendant or the rising sign is how you move through the world. So it's a lot of the time it's how people perceive you, and also how your soul's has chosen to be perceived by other people.
Right.
Yeah.
And am I right in saying that your sun sign is the one that most people would associate with their horoscope?
Yeah. So it's basically where the sun was when you were born. So
I never even knew that.
So when we're recording this, Nat, it's Scorpio season. We're actually about to move into Sagittarius season. So that means the sun at the moment is sitting in the constellation of Scorpio. Okay.
Fascinating.
And everyone who is a Scorpio was born while the sun was in Scorpio.
Right.
And at the same time, I haven't checked today, but I'm pretty sure the moon's in Leo today. Moon's in Leo, and then depending on what time of the day they were born is when what sign was coming over the horizon line at that time of birth.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
So you're saying that we can use astrology for self-awareness.
Yeah.
But we can, where I think maybe it gets a bad rap is when people get very rigid in what that is.
Totally. Absolutely. And when they get rigid with themselves, and also when they get rigid with other people. I see it coming up a lot in dating and astrological compatibility. Who am I most compatible with? I would never, ever tell someone to judge another person based on their star sign, especially if you're just looking at the sun sign, star sign, sun sign. You really need to be quite fluid with any interpretation of astrology, because just like anything we look at, it's a spectrum, right? So what sun sign are you?
Libra.
Oh, that's so lovely. Oh. But Libra, just like any other sun sign or any astrological sign, has its high vibrational qualities and its low vibrational qualities, right? And at any one time, you could swing between the high vibrational Libra qualities and those lower vibrations, and realizing that everyone's on a spectrum and everyone also has a moon sign and a rising sign and a Venus and a Mars and a Jupiter and a Saturn and a Mercury. You know, there's so much that makes up a person. So just as you can't judge and critique yourself and put yourself in a box and use your zodiac signs as an excuse for who you are, you can't do that with other people either.
I think it's really important. Well, I'll never forget once I read, just in terms of, you know, the science part of this.
Yeah.
Where I reconciled it. I was like, okay, I can reconcile that. We can definitely see a shift in how people act and behave when the moon is full.
Right.
So the concept is kind of along the same lines, right? With what we're talking about, it's the different energies that planets have on how our cells and how we vibrate and then how we think and act and behave.
That's exactly it.
It's
working on vibrational frequency. Yeah.
I was like, oh yeah, I can definitely, you know, anyone can see. I think if you've got children, you can see how they behave during a full moon.
Absolutely.
How you sleep during that time. You know, how you feel. And I know that anyone who's in like emergency work or a police officer, they'll definitely say, oh my gosh, it's a full moon.
100%. Aries full moon. Everyone listening, keep your eye out for the next Aries full moon. It's a little while away, but that's when things get crazy. Look at your kids during an Aries full moon.
Really?
Tantrums. Yeah.
Wow. I've got a 16-year-old. 16-year-old tantrums aren't fun, but they happen. So, I mean, I think I do particularly love, you did touch on the dating world, and I think that's where probably a lot of people, I think there's two main places that a lot of people are very interested. They're like, dating, yes, compatibility, but also my children. What are my children going to be like?
Yeah, I love doing kids' natal charts. Not for the kids, for the parents.
Yes, because it's a little bit of a blueprint also, or not even, it helps to navigate maybe.
Yeah, I think especially looking at a kid's moon sign, which is their emotional responses, and how best to nurture it. We're not trying to change it. We're trying to nurture it. So, for example, I use this example all the time. Little boys with water moons or water placements at all. So the water signs are very emotional. And if a little boy with a water moon is being told boys don't cry, boys shouldn't show emotion, and they start to shut that moon down, then we have an emotionally unavailable man walking through the world who's shut off his moon sign, right?
Interesting.
And at the same time, he's shut off his intuition, he's shut off his sensitivities, he's shut off his regulation, right? So there is a lot that we can do when we understand our kids' natal charts. Where I run into precarious waters with parents is trying to control the evolution of their child's chart, because the other thing we can see in a chart is where your wounds are. We can actually tell a lot about your relationship with your parents, how you were grown up, what sort of environment you were subjected to in the earlier years. And we can't change that. That is, I believe, in my belief system of astrology, I believe our soul chooses our natal chart, and the lessons that our soul needs in this lifetime are part of that journey. Yeah.
You just spoke about intuition, because I think the hard part is also where I feel like there's a bit of a misunderstanding when someone's presented with that information. It's not even about a prediction. It's actually just about, like you said, a blueprint. I think that's where a lot of people get caught up in the woo part of it.
Yeah.
The predicting of something and how that's
totally. I work as an astrologer, right? So we say predictive astrology when we're looking at the transits, which is basically where the planets are at this exact time and how they're interacting with your natal chart. Now, a lot of astrologers can say, I can tell you when you're going to fall pregnant. I can tell you when you're going to meet your soulmate. I can tell you this. I can tell you that. I do not subscribe to that at all. We can
Why?
Because I just think that humans have choice and free will, and there's crossroads in life, and there's choices we make, and there's external influence all the time. I do, however, think that I can say to you the energy is very supportive at this time if you're looking to fall pregnant. Will you fall pregnant at this time? Don't know. But the energy is there to help you if you want to.
Because there's
Use
obviously
it.
times where it's not there.
Where it's not there or where it will actually be quite difficult for certain reasons. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that that's probably a really important point when it comes to that prediction side of things and where you're right. I believe the same thing, like it's very murky.
Very murky. And if someone is telling you they can do it, they're trying to get your money. I say that all the time. Yeah.
Well, what you're also saying is that there's no better person to understand this than yourself.
Yeah.
Which is what you teach in your new book.
Yeah.
It's teaching somebody how they can use it as a tool, not as a prediction of what your life is going to be, but more about who you are, how you behave, how you act, that sort of thing, right?
Absolutely. And when we look at the parts of our chart that are challenging, and we all have the challenging parts in our chart, it's not becoming a victim to those challenges or going, oh, well, that's my lot in life. It's like, how can I rise above those challenges and what growth will come from doing that?
Because that's, I guess, where it can be that downfall. It's like, oh, well, that's not meant to be for me, so I just won't do anything.
Yeah.
Or, you know, that's what you're saying. It's an opportunity to see that, know that, and then decide what you're going to do with that.
Absolutely.
Rather than just accept, I don't know what examples I can think of with that. But I know that, yeah, whenever I've really taken some time to sit in it, and then obviously there's layers to it as well, but it's been a lot of aha moments.
Yeah.
And also a little bit of grace, you know, you are who you are because of these reasons.
Yeah.
Because of the energy's vibration, all of that.
And then using that knowledge to understand your friends and your colleagues and your loved ones better. I use this example a lot when I'm doing interviews, but one of my very close friends growing up, she is a triple water. So she has a lot
She cry a lot?
Well, no.
But should she cry a lot maybe?
Well,
is she sensitive?
Yeah. So
Right.
she feels a lot on the inside, but I didn't know that about her because she doesn't express it.
Right.
Right.
Because it's been turned off, or she's just learnt to not?
I think she was raised in a way where it wasn't necessarily something that you share with other people, right? And she, if we want to get into the semantics of it, she has a Scorpio rising. So Scorpios can come across like really kind of switched off when really on the inside there's intensity and they're festering, right? So I used to wonder like, why does she get so offended by everything all the time? And, you know, but once I found that out about her, now I know that when I'm communicating with her or I need to tell her something big or whatever it might be, I take all of that into account. I don't have water in my chart. I'm very cerebral, overthink, overanalyze everything. So I try and intellectualize things when I'm telling them to people. But for her, it needs to come from this very deep emotional feeling sense and having the sensitivity when doing that.
Yeah. Well, it's a tool for everyone. Maybe we should be presenting everyone else with our natal chart so they can understand us better.
Totally. Can you please read this and then interact with me?
I mean, I guess that's where it becomes, and that's just what you said before, it becomes very useful with kids and how you can actually communicate with them and understand them better and give them grace for certain things. And, you know, I think that to that same point, maybe we just need it alongside of our license so everyone can say, this is who I am and this is also who I am.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Just before we finish up, you have made a career. I mean, obviously, as a journalist, the previous books have had a lot to do with manifestation. And I would love to know, how do you respond to people saying that manifestation might lead to focusing too much on wishing without the emphasis of action?
Yeah. Look, I think manifestation is this co-creation piece between taking action and practicing non-attachment, having faith, surrendering. And I think, if you are trying to manifest by sitting there and going, I wish this would happen for me, or God, I hope this happens for me, and you're not actually doing anything about it, that's actually not manifestation at all. Manifestation is about taking ownership of a future you desire. And to do that, it's working out what it is you want, the intention that you have, and then directing your energy towards that. So we talk about the thoughts you have, the feelings you have, and the action steps that you take. Yeah.
I think I was talking to Olivia about this because I was trying to say to the kids, you can't just hope for the best with an exam result. You actually
Right.
have to do the work.
Yeah.
And my daughter plays basketball and does a lot of training and extra training. And I said it makes sense to expect the outcomes that you're wanting for your basketball because you are doing all of these things that allow you to go, I'm not just wishing, I'm actually putting things in place with an outcome that I'm in mind.
Yeah.
You can't do that with your schoolwork if you haven't actually put the effort in and hope you're going to get an A.
Right.
If you haven't done the steps to get the A. And my daughter was like, oh, okay, I get it. I get it now. But I think that's part of where manifestation does get a bad's not the right word, but negative kind of associations is you're not just hoping for the best. You're not just putting it out there and going,
No.
I want a house by the beach, but they're not just sitting here every day. Like you have to do things.
You have to do things. I think, look, and this is the tough bit because I'm A-type. So doing the things, not a problem for me.
Right.
I'll do all the things. My problem is surrendering and trusting and letting go and having no attachment to it, right? So there's something in it for everyone.
It's fascinating though because you can think about the times where you have done that and not had an attachment to the outcome. We made a joke about many years ago, I kept winning blenders.
What? That is the most random
not
fact.
attached to the blender. I don't want another blender. Every time we'd go to an event and the door prize was a blender, for sure I was winning it.
Yeah.
And every time someone goes to say the surname Kringudis, you know before that you've won it because no one can ever say the surname.
Right.
And I'm like, if I win another blender, but I wasn't attached to it at all,
Which
but
is
it was
why
almost like a
coming
bit of a
in.
joke. And it was also like the vibration to the blender was there was already an awareness of the blender actually, but I wasn't attached to it.
Right.
And it kept happening as now it became a really bad joke. I ended up with like 15 different blenders.
That is so funny.
So funny. But I think the times that you can think about where almost like, of course, that was going to be the outcome because I wasn't attached to it.
Yeah, and it's like that really, really annoying thing to hear if you're single when someone says, as soon as you decide you don't need it, it will turn up. Now, it's a frustrating thing to hear, but it is absolutely 100%
It really
true.
is. It really is. I see it with patients with trying to conceive all the time.
Perfect
and how
example.
do you really surrender that up? Is if I could bottle what that is, but the minute that the pregnancy's there and they actually have somewhat surrendered 9 times out of 10, it's almost been and this is what I think the surrender sometimes is in making the next appointment to see the next fertility person or whatever, and then they come and they go, well, I made that IVF appointment but actually fell pregnant in the meanwhile. It's because you mentally handed it to someone else.
Yeah.
And you went, stuff it, I'm done.
Yeah.
But you can't bottle that.
No, you can't bottle it and you can't teach it.
You can't teach it.
Yeah.
I think what you need to do is apply it to easier areas of your life so that then you can start to replicate it in other areas.
Absolutely.
That's the only way I can see. And you're more of an expert on this than I am, but that's how I've been able to really, because it's really funny when you can see, I'm like, I can do that over here in my life. Why can't I do it over here?
Right. Because of your limiting beliefs around it. Yeah. Right. And that's what stumps people with manifestation more than anything. I think, the building up a bank of evidence is really good.
Because also you can borrow the feeling of what that felt like when the outcome came in, and that's 100%. Part of the surrender, right? It's like I can invite that feeling in at any time.
Yeah, start small, see results, put it in your bank of evidence, and then get bigger and bigger and bigger. That's what I recommend people do with their intuition as well.
Yeah, I mean, another whole fascinating thing I love to talk about, intuition. If only we had all day. Thank you so much for joining me today. This has been so great. And obviously people can access your books and everything you do online.
Yeah.
As well as bookshops and all the rest of it. So, definitely go out and check that out. But thank you again. This has been great.
Nat. It's been great.
Hey there, it's Nat Kringudis, host of the Wellness Collective podcast. I know how important it is to have a safe space for women's health, and that's why we created NK the Membership, an online sanctuary where you can access expert guidance and support right from home. Get early access to monthly masterclasses, unlimited access to our entire catalogue, and practical resources to achieve hormone harmony. Plus, enjoy a 20% discount on supplements and join my monthly live Q&A sessions. hormones. Join our community of like-minded women and wellness experts to revolutionise your health one topic at a time. Visit our website and sign up now. It's legit Netflix for hormones.